0-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Lining up, Adrian double, and here it comes. Overkick. Connects.
Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Game Day. We are on our 29th episode, and it's crazy to think just how many episodes of this I've done, and obviously covering the Phillies and then covering every single Eagles games has added to that toll. But we're here for episode 29, discussing what week of the NFL is this? 12, 13? What week are we? Week 13, yeah. And, well, a lot of craziness ensued this week in a couple of different games, like Detroit deciding they wanted to completely mop the floor with Jacksonville and beat them 40-14. Absolutely insane game from them. We had the return to Houston, where this man was completely washed and was carried by his defense, and I should know that because I started the Browns defense this week because I knew they were going against the Texans, and they got me 31 points. The Browns defense, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and 3 defensive touchdowns on the day. Absolutely crazy game from their defense. Pittsburgh beat Atlanta, which really sucks because I'm pulling for Atlanta to win the division because I don't want to see Tom Brady in the playoffs this year. Baltimore somehow beat Denver 10-9 in an absolutely snoozer of a game, really, especially because Lamar Jackson went out, and yet Denver still couldn't find a way to win. Chicago was actually up on Green Bay, I believe, at half, but they come back to win. And I think it's too late for Green Bay. We're gonna look at the playoff standings, at this current moment, but I just don't see Green Bay making it out already with 8 losses on the season. Minnesota and New York had a very close game, but Minnesota comes out on top. They now improved to 10-2. Mike White, that is a really weird game to see from Mike White. 369 yards, but he had 2 interceptions, and his only touchdown came from rushing. That's pretty weird. Where did most of their touchdowns come from then? I'm so confused on that because I'm looking at the box sheet and on the box score, and I'm not even seeing like any defensive touch. Wow, their kicker did most of the work. I'm looking at it. Wow, that's pretty crazy. Minnesota looking scary to others. I doubt us Philly fans are afraid because we know what happened at the start of the season, and of course people are going to complain and be like, oh, it's because Kirk Cousins was playing after 5 o'clock, as if that changes anything. He just has a bad record in primetime. It doesn't mean this man magically loses his ability to play. Washington and New York went to overtime, and they tied. I didn't realize. I thought I remember my dad saying that New York won. No, they tied. Wow, so that actually helps out the Eagles a lot because that tie is really gonna help us out the more I think about it. Because now, let's see. Now that puts the Seahawks over the Commanders. Wow, that's pretty crazy. Well, I'm glad to see that tie happen. I'm glad to see neither of those teams win, and it helps out the Eagles in their quest for the division title. Who won the division title last year? It was the Cowboys. Miami and San Francisco is looking to be like an interesting game because everyone's like, oh, this is going to be a real interesting game for Miami to prove themselves, San Francisco to prove themselves. You have Miami's high-octane offense, with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle going against that Niners defense who hasn't allowed a single score in the second half for I think it was 3-4 weeks. I think Jalen Waddle ended up going out the game, which sucked. Tyreek 146 yards and a touchdown, did what he did. But, Tua, 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, though, and a fumble loss. And Jimmy Garoppolo went out on the Niners' first drive, so in comes Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, last pick in this draft. He comes out, throws 210 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had an interception, but he basically helped get them... He basically helped them seal this game, especially behind Christian McCaffrey. 17 carries, 66 yards, 8 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. Kyle Juszczyk even had a touchdown. Debo had 85 yards catching. Brandon Ayuk, 46 yards. George Kittle, 22. And then obviously the defense came to play. They forced 3 interceptions. 3 interceptions? Who did they get the third one? It's just... Someone came in for 2. Okay, I was like, what the heck, where'd the third? But 3 interceptions, 3 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and fumble recovery, and even a defensive touchdown. Niners came to play. The Niners are looking extremely scary, and that is the one team I am afraid to play in the playoffs, especially because it's just almost still, it's hard to believe that Christian McCaffrey is on this 49ers roster, that they made that trade for him. It is pretty insane to think about. Like, I was watching, like, I guess it was like someone like did like a little, highlight sort of a video for that Niners game yesterday, and it's just like it's so odd seeing him in that Niners jersey, but I almost want to say he like fits in it, like like he looks like, I don't know how to put, but like, it just fits him so well, like he looks like he'd be playing for the Niners, if that makes sense. The Seahawks beat the Rams and they improved to 7-5. Geno Smith still looking impressive in these games. I know that the poor Seattle running back room has been decimated by injuries, and they haven't really been able to do much with that, but they're making up for it with the receiving game and Geno Smith stepping up his play. We saw the rematch between Kansas City and Cincinnati, and close game, 27-24. Joe Burrow, 286 yards, 2 touchdowns, and even a rushing touchdown. And he even had 46 yards on the ground. Patrick Mahomes, 223 yards, a touchdown. Pretty insane stuff from this team. I think Joe Mixon's still out, but yet their other running back, Samaje Perine, is stepping up. I hope I pronounced that right. 21 carries, 106 yards, and 49 yards through the receiving game. Impressive from there. Jamar Chase, as always, 97 yards. T. Higgins, 35 yards, but he had a touchdown. Tyler Boyd, 60 yards. Pretty impressive from the Chiefs as well, but it just isn't enough, to get them past this Cincinnati squad. But it was still a real, close game between these two. The Raiders beat the Chargers. Man, I need to take a look at this AFC West, or not AFC West, but AFC sort of playoff picture, because it's like I'm heavily invested in the NFC, obviously, with my team being there, but it's really, like, I really have no clue what's going on in the AFC, because there's, like, so many teams that, like, look good on paper and all that, and then, like, when you actually look at the end of the week scores, you're just like, man, a lot of these teams just are like, you think they have the matchup on hand, but then they end up just like losing pretty badly, and it's just kind of crazy to look at. And speaking of AFC teams losing pretty badly, Dallas beats Indy 54-19. Pretty insane game from Dallas right there. And I think their defense had an impressive game too. 3 interceptions, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 2 recoveries of those fumbles, and a defensive touchdown. Pretty crazy game. And might as well chalk this season up, Indy. And then sadly, we had Tom Brady leading a comeback against the Saints. I only say sadly because I really just don't want Tom Brady to make the playoffs, but also, it's also a good thing because the Saints lose again. They're 4-9, and it just improves our chances at that pick. Right now, we're at like number 5, and we still have the best record in the NFL. But let's get to our game. Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Tennessee Titans. Game I was very much afraid of because I was like, man, they need to learn how to stop Derrick Henry. They haven't proven to me that they could stop the run. And oh boy, did they stop the run. And oh boy, did that defense come up clutch against this Titans offense. Sorry, I'm looking for Pro Football Reference. There we go. I need to pull up the box sheet for this one. I need to be able to look at the in-depth stats for this game. But yeah, they stepped it up even though I was constantly, I'm pretty sure, let's see. I was right about the Detroit game. I was wrong about the Minnesota game. I was right about the Washington game. I was skeptical just because of how Trevor Lawrence had been playing, but I did say I think we'd win that game, so we were good there. I did say we'd beat the Cardinals because they wouldn't have D-Hop, and we ended up doing that. I think I said we'd drop this Dallas game because it was going to be at home, and we usually lose to Dallas at home, but we ended up winning that. We beat the Steelers, which I was wrong on because wait. Hold on. The season prediction I was wrong, but I think the week before I was like, no, I think we'll win this because they just haven't been living up to their expectations. Texans obviously was a W. I'm pretty sure I was wrong on this Commanders one when I said they'd win and they ended up losing. Indy, I said they'd lose because of Jonathan. No. I said, well, in the season prediction, I think I said they'd lose, but I think the week before I said they'd win because Jonathan Taylor has been pretty bad. I said they'd lose to Green Bay. They ended up winning. And I'd say they'd lose to Tennessee, and they ended up winning. Just continuing to prove me wrong. And people might be like, oh, you're not a real fan if you're predicting against your team. But it's Philadelphia, and it's right. Like, Philly fans have a right to be skeptical with this team. Even though they're 11-1, we have our right to be skeptical. And it's not a lack of faith. It's more of, we know this team and how badly they've let us down so many times. It's like the Phillies, shout out to Phillies. I forgot to mention they signed Trey Turner, which everyone pretty much knew was a given the moment the offseason started. But, it was one of those things where it was like, it's being talked about so much, I doubt it even happens. But it actually happens. People were complaining because of the amount of money they give them. But it's like the guy from... is it A2D Radio? They're a page I follow on Instagram. They're a Philly page to get where I get all my Philly news. He was saying that, you got to realize we've been going through a decade of us being terrible. Now we're in win. We just made a World Series. Of course, we're going to be in win now mode, so why are you upset at the fact that they're like going all in to try and capitalize on this window and this roster that they have? And it's a similar thing. It's a similar thing with this Eagles squad where we saw them get to this, where we saw them win the Super Bowl for the first time ever back in 2017-2018 season. And then they let us down the seasons after where it's like, it was either, they were a play away from advancing, or it's like they ended up making mistakes such as, signing too many veteran guys to long-term deals, putting themselves in cap hell basically by not having enough money to even negotiate with certain players that could, how would you put it? That would, be able to improve the roster, and then having to settle with, no disrespect, but low-end guys at times, I mean, just look at our receiving core back in, 2019, where I want to say Greg Ward was our, leading receiver. Or no, I think Zach Ertz was our leading receiver, but, in terms of wide receivers, Greg Ward was the leading receiver, and other than Zach Ertz, and I think Dallas Goedert that season, I could be wrong, but, I know for sure Zach Ertz was the only one that had, above 500 yards, and, it was pretty bad, so it's we're right to be skeptical even when we're doing good, because it's again, the thing I've always brought up throughout this season is that us Eagles fans are used to the Eagles playing down to their competition instead of playing above the level, But here, they came with it, They got 21 points in that first half and then shut out the Titans completely in the second half. And it's just an insane effort on all accounts. Jalen Hurts came in with 29 throws, or 29 passes for 380 yards, 3 touchdowns, got sacked twice but no interceptions. He also rushed 5 times for 12 yards and 1 touchdown. So he ends with 4 touchdowns on the day. Rushing game wasn't really there. As you also look, Miles Sanders, 10 attempts for only 24 yards, but he did have a touchdown. Boston Scott, 6 attempts for 16. Kenneth Gainwell, 3 for 5, or for 15. So not much going in the rushing game. And, us Eagles fans wanted to see improvement. Here's the improvement. Rushing game gone. Guess what? We're not one-dimensional anymore. Here comes Jalen Hurts throwing for 380 yards and 3 touchdowns with A.J. Brown against his former team having his revenge game. 8 catches, 119 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Devontae Smith pulling up with 5 catches, 102 yards, and 1 touchdown. Quez had 5 for 37. Jack Stoll had 3 for 41. You know, we're proving we're not one-dimensional as we were last season, where it's like you eliminate the run, we're struggling to pass. Boom. Just 2 people who can get down the field right there. Devontae Smith being an absolutely amazing route runner and getting these amazing plays. A.J. Brown just bullying his way downfield. I saw a couple people complaining about the call, but you saw him basically do a double move and crash right into defender, and people were trying to be like, oh, that's offensive pass interference. But like, if you watch the play closely, it's like he's just running his route where he's trying to do the double move, and his defender just crashes right into him. And it's like, it wasn't like he forced the contact, he was just trying to run his route, and he just bullies his way to get that touchdown. And then the other catch as well, where he just went up and got it, and it's a massive improvement after his past couple of games where like we said, he's been sick, so he hadn't been playing that well. He'd been going through a ton of things where he was sick, he was throwing up, and he even, like, I think I told my dad, like, he popped like a blood vessel in his eye from how like sick he was and from throwing up. It was pretty crazy stuff for A.J. Brown. I'm glad, or I hope he's feeling better, and if he is, I'm glad he's feeling better, and he gets to have his revenge game against his former team, who put simply, just didn't want to pay him, and instead took the chance on a rookie receiver on a cheaper deal. And I don't know, man, look at a game like this, and I just kind of want to say, it's like maybe we don't know things as much as we think we do, because so many people are always saying, oh, it's cheaper and better to just draft these rookies than to pay, proven guys, and all that. It's like, I remember during the draft, Titans fans, you can't deny it. You guys were like, oh, we got it. We got the better end of the deal because Treylon Burks is much better, and he'll be on a much cheaper deal. Sure, he got a touchdown this game, and it's no disrespect to him, but Treylon Burks had 1 catch for 25 yards this game. A.J. Brown, who you didn't want to pay, and you shipped off to the Eagles, 119 yards and 2 touchdowns on 8 catches alone. Looking at his season right now, let me see. Right now, he has 61 catches, 950 yards. And the funniest part was that I saw like Titans fans saying that he'll be injured, he won't be playing that many games for you. He's only ever gotten 1,000 yards like twice, I think is what they were saying. And people forget to realize he's 25. This is his 4th year in the NFL, and it's looking like he's gonna get his 3rd 100-yard receiving season, and he has 9 touchdowns. And if things keep going the way they're going with his chemistry with Jalen Hurts, he'll likely pass his season high of 1,075 yards and pass his season high of 11 touchdowns or receiving touchdowns. So it's like, I don't know. And the whole thing about the injuries and all that, he played 13 games out of the 13 games he started last season, 14 games the season before, 16 in his rookie year. I can understand maybe last year, because that's like what, 17 weeks, that's 4 games missed he basically had. But like, my guy, he still relatively stayed on the field and stayed consistent for the most part. Like, I don't know if there's something I'm missing here, but like, if you were to have asked me as the GM, I would have paid this guy. And funny enough, their GM got fired. And, who knows, maybe they couldn't pay him because they're too busy paying Ryan Tannehill that expensive contract just for him to have 141 yards and 1 touchdown on the day and get sacked 6 times. And usually you don't have to worry too much about that stat line because Derrick Henry comes in and, dominates. But the Eagles said, hey, you're not doing anything today. You're going to have only 11 carries for 30 yards, no touchdown, and your longest run be 6 yards. Absolute crazy game from the defense. Josh Sweat, 2 sacks. Javon Hargrave, 1 sack. And I believe he just tied or broke his season record for amount of sacks in a season. So, investment paying off right there. Fletcher Cox having 1 sack. Brandon Graham with 1. Hassan Riddick with 1. All the guys that we've been looking at, finally. And, looking towards for those, those sack numbers. Get them right here. Josh Sweat with 3 QB hits. Hassan Reddick with 4 QB hits. Dang it, this thing doesn't show me pressures. I need to, for a site as analytical as Pro Football Reference, you would think they would show you stuff like the pressures, unless I'm just not looking in the right areas. But, great game from them. We saw Kubbi Dean get some playing time finally. He had 6 combined tackles, 5 solo. Tied with Christian Ellis. I've never heard of this guy, but he had 5 solo tackles. Dang, that's impressive. I actually have never heard of this guy. That's surprising, I guess. Well, no, it says TJ Edward played. Who didn't play that? No, Kaiser. Hold on. I need to look up. Who is Christian Ellis? Is he a linebacker? He is a linebacker. Never heard of this guy. But he came in and provided 5 solo tackles. He must be a depth guy that came in during that 3rd and 4th corner. And I guess him and Kubbi Dean just, used their playing time to show best of what they got. As Kubbi Dean also got 1 tackle for loss. I really don't know what's going on with him. I know some people have said maybe he's actually, still healing from his shoulder injury. Other people are saying that, it's simply a thing of TJ Edwards and Kaiser White played too well to give Kubbi Dean any snaps, but I don't know what it is, but you guys know I've been rooting for this guy, so I'm really hoping for the best for him, and I can't wait to see him and Jordan Davis on the field together, because that was the key to that Georgia defense, was the two of them playing together and leading together. Ndamukong Suh, 2 solo tackles. Who's the other one? Oh, Linval Joseph, 2 combined tackles. Okay, 2 assisted tackles, right? That's what, yeah. Wait, did Jordan Davis play this game? I thought he did, because I thought my dad said he did. Hold on. Man, wait. Okay, hold on. I'm double checking, but if they didn't have Jordan Davis this game, then that makes this game even more impressive. Because I'm not seeing him pop up in the box score, and I couldn't remember when looking, through the highlights and all that, if I saw him pop up. Did he play today? My gosh, sorry. I just want to see this, because if they were able to stop Derrick Henry without him, they said he would They said he would make his return because he was activated from the IR, but did he play? Because I know they put Chauncey Gardner. Well, even if he might have played, but box scores and everything, so he probably just his impact was felt. Because same thing with that Detroit game. He wasn't really a box score guy, but we saw how much he helped against that run. The corners obviously came to play, shut down the receivers. I don't think any receiver had over one receiver had over 50 yards, but the rest of them were just pretty much shut down on the day. Did a great job. I don't think no interceptions on the day, but like I said, 6 sacks, pretty impressive. Gotta worry about this team, and I'm speaking to other teams. They're putting the pieces together. They're learning to stop this run. They're learning to not let other teams capitalize on, the time. Look, time of possession, Philadelphia 32 to Tennessee's 27. Pretty even. They kept even. Not letting any team do what Washington did to them. And we look to next week, where we play, I believe it is the Bears. right? Oh, no, we played the Giants. No, it's the Giants, then the Bears, then the Saints? No, not the Saints. I think it's the Cowboys on Christmas Eve. I believe so. Yeah. Oh, no. Giants, Bears, Cowboys, then the Saints, then the Giants again. All right. Definitely a game we need to win. I think we will win because we've kind of caught New York. We've luckily caught New York on somewhat of a downward slope, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't know what happened with New York. They were doing, like, pretty good. And then, I don't know where they just haven't done all too well in these past couple of weeks. Like, they tied with the Commanders, they lost to the Cowboys, they lost to the Lions, they beat the Texans, but then they also lost to the Seahawks. So they're 1-3-1 in their past 5 weeks. So we've caught them on this downward slope. We luckily didn't catch them when they were on that 4-game winning streak. We've caught them on this downward slope, and I just think the Eagles will be able to capitalize. They were able to shut down Derrick Henry. Now the next challenge is shutting down Saquon Barkley, and I think they can do it, especially with Jordan Davis coming back. You know, he has this week under his belt, and now, you know, I think he'll play a massive part in shutting down Saquon in this next game. Or I'll put this so it doesn't sound like I'm going too crazy with predictions. I don't think they'll completely shut down Saquon, but I think they'll at least make his efforts a non-effort, you know, where even if he gets like a good amount of rushing yards and gets over 50 yards in this game, it won't be enough and it won't have as much of an impact on the game, because I think the game will be put into Daniel Jones's hands, and we know that receiving core for the Giants isn't that good. You know, I don't think they have really anyone. A lot of their guys have been out. They got they got a couple of guys that have been like out with injury, and you look at the box score for this Washington game, and their leading receiver was Darius Slayton, you know, and you look at the other names right behind it, and you're just like, man, this should be almost a cakewalk for that Eagles secondary, even without Chauncey Gardner-Johnson being there. And the defense should just, you know, completely take advantage. You know, Daniel Jones got sacked 4 times in this game against the Commanders. The Eagles can replicate what they just did against the Titans. You know, that's a game that is must win to completely, you know, keep pushing towards that number 1 seed. You know, not only in the division, but overall in the NFL, because you can't let up, because Dallas has Houston this week. That's pretty much a guaranteed W, even though there's any given Sunday. Washington, who does Washington have next week? Washington is on a bye next week. Okay, so we're good. And then looking at the standings of the NFL, the playoff standings, we have Eagles at number 1, 11-1. Vikings at 10-2. Though even if we lose next week, we do have the advantage over Minnesota because we beat them. But you have the Niners at 8-4, who don't look like they're going to be letting up anytime soon. The Cowboys at 9-3. You don't want to give them any chance to get a win over us, you know. But pretty safe for right now. But you can't let your foot off the gas pedal. And then you just kind of got to worry about looking towards like any matchups with the AFC. You don't want to look too far ahead, but there's also some scary teams in the AFC that you just wouldn't want to play come Super Bowl time. But to end on a positive note, I absolutely think the Eagles will beat the Giants this next game. It could be a close one, but I think more so it should just be easy for this Eagles team, especially after this dominant effort. And, you know, there's really nothing more I can say other than just like how the Wu-Tang says it to the rest of the NFL, protect your neck against this team, because they're putting all the pieces together. They're hitting on all fronts, and you're going to have to learn to stop a lot of things if you're going to want to beat this team, you know. And I'll continue to just have that mentality until we lose, not only again, but just until we're out of the season. You know, whoever is able to knock us off and able to, you know, end this season for us, hey, I welcome it, and I'll be here to analyze it, you know, as fairly as possible. But right now, I think we still finish with, or yeah, I think we finished with this number 1 seed. I'm not letting up the confidence. For once, I'm going to have confidence in this team. In the offseason, I had confidence in this team. I said that this future was bright for this team. I didn't expect it to be this bright, but I'm happy that they're doing this good. But with that being said, thank you all for joining us for another episode of Game Day. And as always, many things in this life may seem difficult, but if you fight for your dreams will fight for you. Thank you all, and I'll catch y'all next week for episode 30.